guess sorry about that. If you are watching live, you got the intro at least, and then my microphone didn't work. But it's working now, and you can hear me, and we're all doing awesome. So my name is Adam Ponophobia Cogswell. I am your host, as always, or almost always. I kind of want to go back, just as a side before I introduce everybody who's normally here, is that I kind of want to go back and see how many episodes I've missed over the years, and get like a proper number or a proper percentage of episodes that I've been on. And I'm really bad at guessing, but I've probably been on at least 90% of these shows. I'm undershoot it a little bit.
Way more than 90%. I think you've missed more episodes in the past year than you missed in all the time up until that point put together.
Punch. Well, Punch was a listener, so
how dare you get a life?
Adam.
I haven't really missed that many episodes this year, though. 2, 3, maybe?
In comparison to previous years.
You missed a few, like, in one group of time when you had a lot of stuff going on. Like, in spring? Was it spring?
Probably.
Yeah?
Yeah, like early spring, late spring, whatever it was, right? Yeah, so Jen is here.
Hey.
Punch.
Hey, everybody.
And Sean.
What's up?
Quickly, because...
Punch doesn't have a real name, by the way. That's what he goes by in real life.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Call him Punch.
My coworkers call me Punchinello.
I call him. I don't think I've ever called him Brad.
Like, called him Brad.
Shh.
Oh, right.
You ruined
I don't
it.
have a real name. What are you talking about?
Oh, right. Sorry, Bradley.
Now everyone knows.
Oh, Jesus. Well, do you want to put your new address out there too, so everyone can help you move? No, I'm kidding.
Oh, jeez.
That's
That's a terrible idea.
I'm okay with that.
I bet you'd have quite a few people show up.
Yeah, awkwardly.
Asking, where's the beer?
Yeah.
Teclado will be back
that
this
would be
Wednesday.
Adam.
I would bring the beer. Duh.
After I finish moving.
Yeah, right. I'll show up.
That's true.
No, I'll bring the beer after you move, so that we just jump right in. Like I'm like, hey, let's christen the house with some beer. We'll do some inaugural beers over the kitchen, and then I'll ask where your bottle opener's at. You'll just throw your arms up in the air and walk away. Guys, it'll be all packed away. Get it?
I've got a bottle opener. You think I'm a barbarian?
It'll be packed away. You just moved. That was the joke. Oh, anyway,
He keeps one in his wallet.
I have one on my keychain.
Yeah, see? You're prepared.
Internet. Wednesday. Wednesday, I just want to do this announcement real quick, and then we'll do the announcements at the end of the show, is that on Wednesday we have a special guest on. If you guys are just okay with us bringing Guido on, he is going to be coming onto the podcast on Wednesday to talk League of Legends with us.
It's going to be great.
And then, yeah. So Guido, sorry, I didn't really have a good intro ready, so I'm kind of like trying to toss this in. Guido, he is the host of the Just Okay podcast. He does Just Okay guides as well. Declad will be there, so hopefully we can have some kind of like, well, I'm not going to do a pun off because that's like really lame and stupid.
It'll happen anyways.
I just kind of expect it to, happen.
I hope it's
Bad
just
jokes would be aplenty.
Back and forth troll fest. I really want it to be magical.
I'm sure.
And I think it will be.
No, it'll be just okay.
Put together a drinking game. That's probably a bad idea.
No, I like that idea. Let's go. Cheers to that. By the way, those who watch live, this is homebrew. Look how good it looks. Oh yeah. Anyway, let's talk League of Legends. We're gonna talk Kindred. We're gonna talk about them tonight because they are a new champion that was just released, and they are a carry out of the jungle. So it's like issuing this new era of League of Legends, a new type of champions to play. So Sean, you've been playing Kindred quite a bit. How do they function? What have you learned? Do you feel that they're going to be anywhere in the meta? What do you feel they're going to be ushering a new era in? I'm trying to lead you down some paths here of stuff we talked about today.
Answer all of these questions.
All at the same time. All right, so Kindred is an extremely interesting champion. You get to play what boils down to Vayne out of the jungle, which is great when things are going awesome, and then really, really bad if you make a positioning mistake and then you get insta-gibbed, because
so like
that's what'll happen.
Carry ever?
Yep. You play an AD carry out of the jungle, and it's a lot of fun. And I've said this numerous times since I started playing this champion, and I've played a lot of her this weekend. She's really, really busy in that you're always doing something on her. There's other junglers that you might be able to pay less attention with, but especially in the early levels, 1 to 3, you actually get the kite monsters, especially if you have the Krug buff, which is awesome. So you get to jump around, sort of stun monsters. You get to be a little bit more mobile and trying to mitigate the damage coming from monsters. So you get to play a little mini game with your new fun, fancy AD carry jungler.
And what happens if I'm a lazy jungler and I don't kite, or I don't try to move around and I just kind of stand there and eat shit?
You in the early levels, you can get pretty easily counter ganked because depending on how well you're able to kite those minions and mitigate some of that damage, if you don't do a good job, you're going to be sitting around 1/3 health by the time you get over to wraiths if you're starting on bottom side, and that's not good. Especially if somebody else is playing Elise or Nidalee or an aggressive jungler that can go into your jungle at level 2 and make your life miserable.
Can you routes? Can you go Krugs, Wraiths, Red, or do you have to stop at Red in between? Like, what's your health situation? What's your
Usually you'll have your
situation
second potion rolling near the end or while you're running over to Raptors from red buff if you're starting bot side, or if you kill blue buff on your top side and you're heading towards wolves. You could, if you wanted to and you're not that worried about getting ganked at 2, you could go take Scuttle Crab. The thing is, once you hit level 3, especially if, again, this is the other part of kiting around a bit, but you actually get a little bit of health back for moving around. It's sort of like a static shiv sort of buff that once you've moved around a certain amount and you auto attack something, you get a little nice chunk of health back. It's kind of crazy because during levels 1 to 3, if you're not paying that much attention, you'll be really, really low. And then after that point, you basically have built-in sustain and you don't have to worry about the rest of your jungle. I have been able to... I'll be low health, like 40%-ish health by the time I'm done with Raptors. I might take Scuttle. I might take Scuttle before Raptors or whatever, just so I can have a potion ticking while I'm taking Scuttle. If I know I'm not going to be ganked or I'm not worried about getting ganked, and it's nice because Kindred can get out of fights pretty easy if, say, somebody does show up. But once you hit level 3 to 4, you don't have any worries for the most part as long as you're utilizing your abilities appropriately. You get a nice little chunk of health back just from moving around, as long as you are moving around while you're in the jungle. Like I said, you're a busy champion. You should be doing things while you're jungling.
Do we want to go over her abilities since they are pretty busy and they've got a lot of aspects to them?
I would love to go over her abilities.
Go for it.
I'll start with the passive. This is Mark of Kindred. It's got 2 parts. Both Lamb and Wolf mark targets to hunt, and scoring a takedown on the marked target increases Lamb's basic attacks by 1.25% of a target's current health. So in a marked champions, you got 2 ways to do so. First of all is Wolf, who periodically selects a random monster camp within the enemy's jungle, excluding epic monsters, and highlights the camps to both teams. So enemy team knows when you've got a mark in their jungle. And then I guess that stops after you get 6 stacks. Is that
when,
did you notice
once you hit 6 stacks, you can no longer monster camps will no longer be marked by your passive. So
how long does that on hit damage last for after you take down an enemy?
What do you mean?
It's permanent.
Oh, it's permanent
for the
bonus.
rest of the game. You get a flat % extra damage in bonus physical on hit damage for the rest of the game.
Okay.
And the second way to gain stacks is through Lamb, and she actually gets to select a champion to mark. And that mark is hidden while Lamb is in combat with an enemy champion. And once selected, there's an 8-second delay before the mark can be collected, and Lamb can change her target again after 90 seconds.
So to put that into perspective a little screen, and not really screen, but basically all the enemy champions' portraits show up at the bottom of your screen. And you can just select one of them. And once you select one of them, it goes on cooldown. And whichever one you select is the one that becomes marked. So let's say that like you select somebody, you can't select anybody else for 90 seconds unless you kill the person that's marked. And you can mark an enemy champion, and a jungle mob can be marked if Wolf marks it. But once you have 6 stacks of your passive, there's no more jungle, like you don't get any more marks from jungle camps. And the thing is, when you go to mark somebody on the enemy team, they can see you marking them.
Are there hotkeys to mark somebody? Like if you're in the middle of fighting, you kill somebody.
You can't mark anybody while you're in combat.
Oh, right.
Yep.
Okay.
If you're in combat with an enemy champion, that little panel of their character portraits just instantly goes away.
So is there any hotkeys to mark anybody ever, or do you have to click it?
I haven't seen a hotkey for it. I haven't really checked though. I just click it because it's not that hard. And like I said, if you're already, it's weird if you play a champion. time and again kind of come back to this champion and say it's jungle vein, basically. When you're playing a champion like that and you're really, really busy kind of clicking all over the place because you need to be moving around and positioning correctly, it's not that hard to just side click a portrait. So I haven't had any issues. I just clicked the portrait. There might be a hotkey for it, but I haven't even looked at that, to be honest. I've been too busy trying to actually learn how to play the champion.
And when I first read this, I thought it was the mark that was hidden during combat. But as you pointed out, it's actually the low selection list in the UI.
Yep.
So they always know who you have marked.
Yes, and it's a giant purple ring that's at the feet of the character, and there's basically two lines. There's a line like right around the feet of the character, and then there's a line, the diameter of the ring on the outside. And as soon as you mark somebody, you have like an 8-second window that the mark needs to apply. And the two lines, one gets closer to the other and closer to the other and closer to the other until it finally hits, and then it does a little animation, and that's when a target is completely marked. And if you kill a target that's being marked and hasn't been fully marked yet, you don't get the benefit if you go and kill them. So you can't just like sit in brush in middle and decide, hey, I'm going to go immediately gank whatever enemy mid laner there is because they're out of position. But I already have the top laner marked. If you go middle and you kill that champion before the mark completely finishes, you don't get the benefit of the passive.
So let's say you can't. Let's say you can't gank, like you're behind or something. Have you ever tried using that as like a tool to exert pressure? Like say you stick it on someone in bot lane, even though you're not going to gank them and they think you're going to. So
it becomes a situation where you get to play uber mind games with the enemy team if you want to. It's a lot of fun too. Last night, not my best Kindred game per se, but the team comp on the other team was pretty good at mitigating a lot of what I could do. Punch was in that game. What did TF say the moment I marked him last night? As soon as I marked him. That's exactly right. They know. I've had numerous times, as soon as I mark somebody on the enemy team will be like, why are you marking me, Kindred? Or like, LOL, you're not going to get a stack off me. And it's interesting in that if you are going to gank somebody and you mark, it's a big tell because when I first started playing her, I'd mark somebody and then I'd go run towards that lane being like, oh, I'm going to try and go behind them. As soon as you mark them, they immediately just play passive if they're smart. But knowing that they're going to do that, this is where the mind games come in. Say bot lane shoving really hard and you know you're going to gank top lane because top lane's pushed up like crazy and you want to give your bot lane a little bit of help. You can mark the AD carry and they'll start playing a little bit more passively. So unless the enemy has your jungle warded pretty well, they don't know where you're going to go, and you can trick them into thinking you're going to go and gank a spot. Like, let's say with the situation with TF last night. If TF's really, really aggressive, I can mark him and then he might play a little passive since he doesn't have the ability to get out of combat quickly unless he uses flash or ghost or whatever he decides to take for the game. And if I can close the distance and get in there, I likely am going to be able to kill him if he doesn't have his yellow card up.
Yeah, I remember playing the one game I played with you, and there was an enemy Kindred, and Wolf marked one of our camps, or they purposely marked one of our camps. I'm assuming they purposely marked.
Wolf does it automatically.
No, Wolf like just selects a camp, so you might get really lucky.
So Lamb marks champions, Wolf marks jungle.
Yes, Wolf just randomly marks a jungle camp. It might be on the enemy side of the jungle. Usually how it works is for the first 2 stacks, it's usually one of your camps.
Sure.
First, it's almost always been Raptors for me. And then once you have around 2-ish stacks, it's usually Scuttle Crab for the next 2 stacks, and then stacks maybe 3, 5, 6, usually 4, 5, 6, or 5 and 6 are almost always enemy jungle camps. So you can actually get baited into being like, oh, hey, it's on the enemy Krugs, go in there, and little did you know they already had it warded up and 3 people collapse on you and you die because you have no idea how to play that champion.
Was that, I think she was AD carry, but we were treating it like she was jungle for whatever reason. We've never seen them. I keep saying her, but whatever.
Pronouns are hard with this champion.
It is.
To be honest, though, I wouldn't worry about it.
But I was going to say, we instantly warded the race at that point. Right?
Yeah.
We need to ward these races just in case they come up here and try to steal them.
Yeah.
So.
in just the last game, I went to go take the enemy raptors because I thought Elise was probably around her wolves just based on normal jungle times. And the moment I started attacking raptors, Elise was waiting there in the brush, and Orianna had just immediately come to support, and I ended up dying. We ended up going. We had a 1-for-2 trade. Wasn't great. But that could have gone really, really poorly if my mid laner hadn't gone to help me. And that was my fault for not recognizing that the enemy mid laner had left to go help. But you can definitely get screwed over if you're not paying attention, and you can get baited into going to collect your stacks.
Okay, so we talked about that. We need to continue to talk about Wolf and Lamb's
Q?
abilities. Yeah, we just talked about passive, so.
Q is Dance of Arrows. Lamb dashes in the target direction, fires up to 3 homing arrows on arrival upon the 3 nearest targets, dealing physical damage to each. Lamb's current attack target at any proximity will be prioritized by one of the bolts. And there's also another component, which I think is what makes her like Vayne, like you were saying, Chira.
Yep.
Is if you cast Dance of Arrows while in vicinity of her W, which we'll talk about next, the cooldown is reduced from 9 seconds to 2 seconds. So you just jump all over the place.
That's my favorite interaction of her entire kit. So if you're if you use your Q without auto attacking anything, you're going to shoot 3 arrows at the nearest 3 targets to you. If you are in auto attack range of an enemy champion and you auto attack that champion, you can Q towards them, to the side, whatever, as long as they're in range of your Q and you attack that champion. 2 of your arrows will attack the next 2 closest things to you, but 1 arrow will also attack that champion. So that's what it means by prioritizing the target of your autos. And this ability is great for clearing fat waves when they're building up on turret, because, again, the best interaction, you drop your W, your Wolf's Frenzy, and then you get a Q you can use every 2 seconds.
How large is the Wolf Frenzy zone?
It's big. It's like Trundle W big.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, it's really big.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah,
I thought you had to like dance on a little area, but no,
it's a pretty big. I'll get to the zoning mechanic of that in a minute, but you have a big area that you can just dip in and out of while your Wolf's Frenzy is up. You just continuously Q, and the mana cost on it isn't that high, so you can
30.
just kind of, you can use it a lot. And if it's really awesome at kiting, unless they have a really easy on active slow ability like Wither from Nasus, which I ran into last night and was absolutely miserable and completely mitigated this ability, which I should have gone 3-item QSS, but that's a story for another time. But yeah, the dash is great, and it feels it's about the distance of a Vayne roll, or at least it feels like it, and you can use it to jump over walls, like short walls. So the last game I just played, the enemy Riven had just gotten ganked top and was running through their top jungle. I ran to Baron Pit to try and help. She ends up pulling back over to me. I jump over the wall, immediately just start pumping Wolf's Frenzy into them and spamming Q, and we ended up picking, when their mid came up, we ended up killing 3 of them 3v2.
Huh.
So, just diving back and forth between bush and whatnot.
Let's talk Wolf Frenzy then.
All right. So, Wolf's Frenzy. She gets a passive, Lamb gets a passive. You build stacks of Hunter's Vigor as you move around, and this is what I was talking about for that stacking mechanic, which this is also the reason why, if you're jungling her, you'll typically start W, even though your Q hits multiple targets. Every time you take a step, you build a stack of Hunter's Vigor. And at 100 stacks of Hunter's Vigor, your next auto attack heals you for 60 plus 3 times Kindred's champion level. And since her health pool is not huge, it's a pretty significant chunk of health. So the activatable part of this ability, you hit W, and for the next 8 seconds, Wolf just sort of attacks any target that's in range. If you're auto-attacking something, he prioritizes that. But if you don't hit anything, he'll just start attacking a minion that he feels like or whatever. As soon as you start auto-attacking something, he'll swap targets to that. And this ability scales with your AD, so Wolf starts hitting more. But you can you can cast your W.
It scales with your attack speed. 50% of Kindred's bonus.
Sorry, yeah, 50% of attack speed, which is great. And it does pretty good damage. I think I don't remember what level it was. I just looked down and it was doing 100-something damage of just basically this wolf that's in a big radius fighting against somebody.
King and T-Force
I just had Blade of the Rune King with that.
Ah, okay.
I might have had Sheen. I mean, not Sheen.
Seal?
Yeah, Zeal.
Now,
maybe.
With Wolf's Frenzy, I'm assuming that you want to Dance of Arrows, drop Wolf Frenzy while you're jumping, land in it, and then you get 3 more Dance of Arrows off since you have 8 seconds.
As soon as you hit Dance of Arrows, because Dance of Arrows by itself, I believe, on an
it's on a 9-second cooldown, but
yeah.
Wolf's Frenzy does say jumping into it. It says Wolf claims a small area. Wolf's where's it at? Sorry. On activation, the territory is centered around Lamb and her current attack. Oh, I'm sorry, reading the wrong. Casting Wolf's Frenzy or dashing inside of Wolf's territory. So that means if you
automatically turns your cooldown to 2 seconds.
So
yes.
you can get you can get 4 2-second
Yep.
drops off of this if you
even
do it
if
right.
you used your Q and it hit the full 9-second cooldown. As soon as you move into Wolf's Frenzy, it'll go from whatever. Like, let's say you're at 7.5 seconds, it just goes to 2 seconds.
Gotcha. So you can use this. You can use this. You want to use Wolf's Frenzy after you've already dropped your first Q to get a full combo off.
you can definitely do that so you can maximize the amount of hits out of extra Dance of Arrows that you can do. But
and that's
the
a lot
nice
of
thing
extra
about
damage
this,
you're tossing out with Dance of Arrows.
it's a ton of extra damage, and you can use this both as a harassment tool in that, hey, you can get up close to somebody, drop this, auto attack once, and if they stay in it, Wolf's just going to keep hitting them. And there's nothing they can do about it. If you move out of range of them, Wolf still keeps hitting them as long as you haven't hit anything else. Or you can drop it while you're running away, auto attack them, and just kite them back, and Wolf's still going to be hitting them. And if they keep chasing you, it's still hitting them. And if they run away, it's still hitting them. It's a big radius. Wolf hits constantly. It's a lot of fun because I got to play Kindred mid lane into Varus, and I don't know if the Varus was just bad, but I was up 40 CS at one point. And there was nothing he could do about it.
No,
I got a level ahead and just sat on the other side of the minion waves and zoned him.
That's interesting that you're zoning a Varus who should have great zoning.
Well,
tools.
you can hit Q and dodge out of the way of his Q, so that also helps too.
That does help. Now, it does say on activation, the territory is centered around Lamb and her current attack target or the nearest unit. And Wolf's Frenzy ends immediately if she leaves the area.
Yes.
So you have to fight in your area.
Yeah, you if you sit, there's a lot of, between her ult and this ability, there's a lot of sitting in zones or using zones. You fight in zones of power.
Sorry, I was going to say, these abilities kind of like remind me of discussions we've had previously about how we
zones of control.
We tell people to sit inside your danger zone. And if Kindred doesn't teach you how to play around danger zones, I don't know what a champion 80 carry is going to do.
She's so much fun in that, again, she's really, really busy, and it's really rewarding when things work out, but things can also take a terrible, terrible turn for the worse if one little thing goes wrong, or they have somebody that can slow you till the rest of their team can catch up.
Does the jump on Q feel like Callista? Does it have that slow, weird wind up, or is it like kind of like an instant jump as soon as you cast it?
It's more like Vayne. It's pretty instant. There hasn't been any wind up. I would say it's like Vayne, except instead of watching the animation of somebody rolling, it just looks like Lamb looks like she skips to the side. Sure. She just does a little dash to the side. I would almost say it would be like watching a Graves dash, except you can spam it and it's way more graceful looking.
It really sounds like a Callista auto attack to me, how she just dashes.
But it goes off instantly, so you get to control it. But it's pretty much like that.
Well, let's talk mounting Dread. And we haven't actually talked about Q or E. Is Q targeted, or is it like a Kazakh's W where it's a skill shot?
I would say what the bonus damage from arrows?
No, the way if you were to press normal cast on it, is it like a Karthus where there is no indicator of where it goes? The Q.
It's a smart cast.
It's a smart cast. It's always smart cast, right?
It's like a Riven Q in that it's smart cast towards where your cursor's at.
Okay, so there is no indicator on that. Yeah. Now, is there an indicator on W? I would assume not either. Kind of like a smart cast, but it shows you the area.
W is just where you're standing. It like Trundle W's right on top of you.
Right, but like with Trundle, you can put your E in a certain area, with the normal cast. That's what I'm asking. So it's that smart. That's naturally smart casted too, no matter what. And
I mean, I wouldn't know because I only play with Smartcast, so I just hit the button and activate.
Is mounting Dread
I actually think I got that reversed. It's W that has Smartcast, and Q you can choose normal cast if you want, but you don't need a target.
Right.
I'm just going off of the The
doesn't have a
spotlight.
range. Like
The spotlight had a little arrow there that you can.
Oh, it's just
so you
a
could
single
show
arrow.
Kindred hopping over a wall.
It's like a Graves E.
Okay, that's what I was asking. What does the indicator look like? Does it look like a Kha'Zix where it shows you the lines that would go out, or is it just a straight line?
That's an option in the UI, is it not? That you can change it to show an arrow or a radius around yourself.
Right. Mounting Dread, that is a skill shot.
No.
Let's talk E.
You just select an enemy champion and you hit E and you shoot it like you would a Rise. Well, the old school Rise Q. So
Okay.
I guess it'd be like using Tristana's explosive. You just select somebody, throw it on them, and then it's on them. It's not a skill shot. You just select and use it, and it slows for 70% for 1 second, and then you start doing some damage to them. And if you hit the target enough times, you get a large amount of damage and a percentage of the target's max health as damage. And that scales with 20% of your AD. It is awesome. And once you get a couple items, you just take objectives. Well, you take like Dragon and the buffs and whatever you're hitting so fast, it's ridiculous.
Okay, and let's talk Lamb's Respite then. No one can die, essentially. A zone where no one can die.
All right, so you have an ability that is a very, very short range that you press on yourself.
500, which is shorter than an auto attack range.
Yeah, it's pretty short, and it's even shorter when you're like, hey, I'm going to save one of my friends, and then you get close enough to them and the enemy teams realizes, hey, the enemy jungle AD carry is right next to them, immediately swaps, and you die. Yeah.
Well, considering that Kindred's attack range is 500, the range at rank 1
is smaller than her
auto range.
Yep. This has been more helpful for me as an oh shit button when there's somebody on my team that's running back towards me and I can cast it on them as a skill shot comes in to completely negate it, and they'll live. They'll get a burst of health, and then we might be able to finish a fight. My favorite thing to do with this ability, and I don't know if it's just because you feel awesome when it works out, is if you get into a 1v1 situation and you don't know how it's going to go, and you know you have your W up, and the enemy blows everything on you and you're able to get your ult off, and then you're still whittling them down, and it basically becomes like the high noon Western standoff where you're both at no health at all, and then it's like, hey, the great equalizer. You're both at no health, you both get a small heal, and then whoever outplays the other person, you just go gunslinger. And when you get a kill that way, you feel great until you realize you just blew flash and your ultimate to get one kill off on somebody. And it's still like, whatever, it was worth it. That was fun.
So old school, before Punch gets there, I'm asking you a question, Punch, and I'll let you lead into what you're talking about. So don't lose it. Old school listeners will appreciate this. Punch, what is Vayne's auto attack range?
550.
550. Remember when I used to always call it 525 or 500?
Yeah. And I get angry.
Yeah, he would write us saying, God damn it, it's 500. Anyway, Lamb's auto attack range being 500 is shorter, so that's kind of, I just was curious. I was more of like, let's lead it in to make Punch talk here.
Lamb's Respite's really short range. Like when I was first couple games.
That's why she has to have that ultimate, right? Because it's really hard for her to auto attack anybody at 500 range. 50 shorter than Vayne.
Yeah, you get a little bit of a respite for this. Get it? Lamb's respite, and now you get to do stuff. No. When you Q, since you can kind of dash around people in a circle, sort of like Kalista can, if you know what you're doing with her, you can get off more auto attacks than you think you can, and you can dive, especially if you have your W up. You can back out to get an auto, back in to get an auto with your Q, because you can just sort of dip in, dip out. It's really, really fun to do that. This champion's very, very hard to play.
And I wanted to mention for this ultimate that I think the key to playing against Kindred, or one step learning to play against Kindred, is to know the duration of her ultimate, because you gotta be able to anticipate that 3 seconds. So as soon as 3 seconds is over, that's when you hit your cooldown and try to blow somebody up. Playing with Kindred, I never knew when the ultimate was down. I had no idea.
There were a couple situations where I might get caught out by a couple people, and both of them would blow ult on me, trying to match it up with my ult popping, and I would burn 2 to 3 enemy ults for just my ult, and yeah, I die, but then my team was able to clean up pretty big fights afterwards.
I couldn't even identify when it was being cast though, because of the W, or the circle that W provides, and then the circle that R provides. If they were both cast on top of each other, I
right.
really didn't know when the ultimate was down. Like, he's not dying. Oh, yes.
I will
why.
tell you how to differentiate the two. Kindred's W, which is Wolf's Frenzy, puts a big kind of purplish dark shadow thing down on the ground around you. Lamb's Respite or Respite or whatever you want to say to pronounce it. Whatever.
R-E-S-P-I-T-E.
I'll fight you over it. Anyway, if you use that, a giant... Not the same word.
Sorry.
Not the same word at all. Lamb's ultimate puts down a giant swirly thing. Think the Naruto whirlpool swirly thing, if any of you know what that is. There's a giant swirly thing on the ground. You can't miss it. It's big and swirly, and it's huge. Yes, and it glows. It's swirly.
Is it a swirly shape? Is it like the Maelstrom on the old WoW map? That's in the middle of the map?
Kind of, yes, but not taking up the entire map. It's pretty big, though. And other PSA, if Kindred ults and you're at low health and you run out of it and you die, that's your fault because you only live as long as you stand in it. As soon as you walk out of that, you can be murdered again.
Dumbasses.
Yeah.
So how do you feel, all things considered, how do you feel about Kindred? How do you like playing her? I guess we could really, shit, we're 30 minutes of conversation. We can keep going. Sated Devourer or Warrior?
Ooh, it really depends. I was on the Sated Devourer train even with the changes being the 4 auto attacks needed to proc the extra stuff, just because when you have that and you have around 8 stacks and you get that 8 stack proc and you just did 20% of somebody's health and bonus damage, it's pretty gross because it's 5 auto attacks and stuff's dead. Fully Sated Devourer and you get in a 1v1 with an enemy 80 carry and you'll 3-shot them. It feels great. Takes way longer. I was getting Devourer stacked by 18-ish minutes, but you don't really feel like the strength rolls in until you have Sated Devourer, Blade of the Rune King, and a T-Force.
That's a lot of items to make Sated worth it.
I've only got to play Warrior 1 game. I went 22-7 that game. So, like, that's one situation where it worked out really well. I'm going to have to play it more before I give a definitive thing on that. Warrior felt really, really good on her, and I didn't... It might have been because the 10% CDR was nice and that I felt like I could get one more Q off in fights. Or maybe it was just the damage earlier was much, much more noticeable. But
it's got to be the damage. It's got to be the damage thing. I mean, the cooldown reduction's got to be really nice for W or even E, but those aren't spammable spells, and Q is being reset anyway, so that cooldown reduction doesn't really help you as much as... It's got to be more the armor pen and damage.
Against squishier teams, Warrior's the way to go. Against teams with maybe 2 big tanks on them, Devour might be the route to go.
Okay, this is going to lead me to the next topic because it's something that you brought up that I wish I could literally kick myself for not thinking about this earlier, because as much as I love kill lanes... For anybody who's listened to this podcast since like episode 20, maybe 30, knows that I love kill lanes. I love the J4 Leona picture of a goose kill lane. And Sean earlier said, could this usher in the era of kill lanes? I mean, Mordekaiser is the bot. Why couldn't we see kill lanes coming back? Now, kill lanes traditionally were made to stop the passive lanes that were happening in Season 2 because Soraka was so big. And Soraka's kind of making a comeback. And if you can pick into it, Kindred seems like that champion where you have to pick the team comp around it and you have to play off the enemy. Like, you can't just pick her and and let it ride.
If somebody picks Mordekaiser on your team, it's nice to pick up Kindred because, hey, you still get a ranged AD carry for the trade-off of you have now Mordekaiser in the bot lane, which it goes hand in hand for the most part. But I've run into situations playing the Kindred games that I've played, and that you'll get into mid-game team fights and you don't necessarily have that jungle initiate, and a lot of people have been playing Fiora or somebody that's not super tanky out of top right now. I don't know if it's just because people are experimenting or whatever, but when you're missing out on that big engage sort of thing, having 2 AD carries, not as great.
Right.
Especially because if you're both auto-attacking a turret and the enemy engages on you, there's not a whole lot of running away before you're dead.
I always feel the problem that comes with this is that if Mordekaiser doesn't get ahead at any point, we're talking even taking the dragon and using the dragon to push down a turret. It doesn't have to be a kill. It just has to be getting objectives early or whatever it is. He suffers from the same problem that Kill Lane suffered from before, except for that Mordekaiser now can pick up a dragon, right? So you have to get a kill in lane to be able to snowball it. So the AD carry in the jungle will always suffer from the fact that the bottom lane has to be ahead to make her work really, really well, for example. And so let's say in professional scene, somebody picks up Kindred. My thought is the enemy team is going to try to look for that lane swap on them, assuming that they don't have Mordekaiser. Let's say they kill lane it, because the kill lane doesn't work well against one person. They can't take a turret against one person. So then you've negated what they've picked up. So there's a lot of mind games that goes on with picking an AD carry jungle, which is nice for anybody who's playing in that type of sense. But
there's also the fact that you're not getting as much money out of the jungle as you would in lane as well.
In that,
so you're playing an AD carry that is going to need a little bit more time to scale to that point, and it's an AD carry whose attack range is ridiculously short.
On the topic of Mordekaiser,
well, that's another thing, is that you are lacking any sort of siege, because with 500 range, you can't siege a tower. Like, it's hard enough with Vayne or with Draven or something like that.
Graves at
you try to do it with you try to do it with 500 range, like, it's not happening.
And that's why they gave Mordekaiser the ability to get dragon, because if you're going to play a bruiser bottom instead of a marksman down there, you got to have something that provides siege for you.
You have dragon to go run up and hit turrets, and if they don't kill dragon, he does a significant amount of damage to turrets, and if they do kill dragon, he's tanking a lot of stuff underneath, and you can kind of poke out at them.
And that brings up a scenario of why I think Mordekaiser is still good even against the lane swap, because Mordekaiser is going to go bot regardless. If you lane swap against him, no big deal, because now he's got dragon control, which is ultimately what he wants. If you're playing Mordekaiser, you need to take the dragons. Otherwise, there's not really a point to taking him. You're going to struggle a lot.
Mord is also significantly better on blue side, guys. If anyone's thinking about picking him up, he's definitely, he has such an advantage on blue side, because on red side, he's more easily ganked. So,
yeah, that's very true.
And go listen to the Patreon episode.
Patreon.com/TForce Network. $10. You'll get it. That's all you got to give us is $10. You can cancel your subscription next month if you want to. Don't, but you can if you want to.
Don't, but you could if you wanted to.
So that's kind of, does that kind of encompass all our thoughts on Kindred? We'll probably see them played here and there. People are going to spare. There's probably going to be like a Tom Kench thing, because I was looking back at an old episode. Tom Kench came out in 5.14. 5.12, something like that. He came back a long time ago, and we're just now seeing him played in 5.18.
Well, and now he's considered extremely good, and we shit on him for a long time, but they also did buff him a little bit, so that's part of it.
And he's much better out of top and jungle than he is out of support.
Who else is... Go ahead.
Unless you're like a world caliber team and can
take advantage of...
of Jinx Tom Kench, the only team that EDG can play.
But in solo queue, he's a little rough in support. Not terrible, but he's not top tier.
Final thoughts on Kindred. If you're not a really good AD carry, you're gonna struggle on this champion. Or if you can't play Vayne to a certain amount, you're probably gonna struggle on this champion.
So is Punch gonna play Kindred tonight for us while we play kill lane bot?
That's what Punch. You could pick up Kindred out of the jungle, and I bet you do really, really well.
I'll play Mordekaiser bot. It's okay.
She's really, really difficult to play. So if you don't understand her range or understand how her abilities work together, the first couple times I played her, I had barely any idea how the QW interaction was. And as soon as I picked that up and knew how to use it really well, I started doing way better in games. Out of the 8 or so games I think I've played her, I've gone positive in every single one except for one. And I've lost 2 of those. So I don't necessarily see her rolling in and taking the jungle by storm anytime soon, just because she is really squishy, and unless you get a pretty big rolling advantage. And if the enemy team picks up Nasus and withers her, you're kind of screwed. And if the enemy team has a Zillion that can keep you from ever getting a stack of your passive, you're going to have 4 stacks at 30 minutes and just be really, really depressed, which is what happened to me last night. And it was
I've seen
very
several
sad.
of them snowball too, and if you have any questionable positioning in team fights, you might as well not play her, because like if you're used to playing like a bruiser or a tank out of the jungler and you go into a team fight like that, you're done.
even if you get really fed, if you step out of position once and they catch you, it didn't matter how strong you were, you're dead because your health pool is that low. So I mean
you're an
that's
80
why,
carry.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people either last item they end up picking a Bloodthirster just for the little bit of extra health and getting some lifesteal back, or you end up going GA. Because if you get caught, you're dead. And that ultimate, yeah, that's great to keep you alive for 3 more whole seconds and give you enough health to survive 1 more hit or mage burst. So you get 3.5 seconds of extra life if you shit the bed. And if you use it on somebody else and they just switch to you, then it didn't help at all, especially if you're out of it. So
shit the bed.
It's terrible. It's a giant mess to clean up. But your positioning needs to be pretty on point. And if you know what you're doing again, you can do some pretty interesting jumps over walls to end up helping teammates and turning fights around. She is fun, and I tell people to play her, but know what you're getting into and be prepared to get crushed for a while.
I feel like people picking her up will be most successful if either you have a lot of experience in the AD carry role, or you have a lot of experience in the jungle role. Because if you have a lot of experience in jungle, then you can focus on learning the mechanics and the range and things like that. Because you already know how to gank, you know, the rotations, you know, things like that. And if you're a good AD carry, then you can grasp the range pretty easily. You can grasp mechanics, and then you can focus on how to jungle, how to gank, things like that. But if you try to do both at one time, I could imagine that's going to be a huge learning curve.
Yeah, it would be rough. She's not easy.
Well,
she's fun. Speaking
of learning and learning curves and the end of the season and this really bad segue into our next topic, let's round this podcast out with 15 minutes of discussion on unlearning everything we've taught you over the last year in order for you to make that final push.
In a desperate dash to try and attain the rank in the last month.
Remember all those times where I said you should ignore time because it doesn't matter? Well, that was a lie.
Time is now a thing.
Now time matters.
You've got what? 1, 2, 3
weeks.
last 3 weeks?
3 weeks.
3.5 weeks.
Oh, man. Might as well be tomorrow. You guys are screwed.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
All right, so what we're going to talk about is dirty ways to carry yourself through your final solo queue games. This is primarily focused on anybody trying to get into gold, because if you're trying to get into plat or whatever, you can listen to these and use them. I'm sure they'll work all the same. But these are primarily techniques that are used for against
or bronze to silver,
underskilled
like
players who are have never seen it coming, type of thing. Yeah, that type of thing. So I actually want to let Jen start this conversation. I hope I didn't put you on spotlight here, but you did say that you wanted to talk to some certain points anyway.
Yeah, I think like at the end of the day, you got to realize that League of Legends is like 90% based on knowledge. Like mechanics they're important, but they're not the biggest thing in League. Compared to other games, mechanics are actually really easy in this game. And it's all a battle of like who knows what and who can exploit the weaknesses of the other team. So when you talk about things like what we're doing, the reason why Adam just said that this works better in like silver to gold and ranks like that, or bronze to silver, is because those people, you can exploit their lack of game knowledge in order to get somewhere and do what you want to do. And these are tricks that like different people use to like boost or to carry other people. And they're really cheesy ways to play. Like if you ever watched a like Masters level player go into bronze, they're going to play a completely different way than they would play in Masters. Like there's no way they're going to go in. They're not going to play safe. They're not going to like play necessarily team oriented. They're going to do some really cheesy shit. And that's what we're going to give you a little bit of insight into a few different ways to do it. But I think the most common way and the best way to do it is to figure out a good example is to play Yi or Tryndamere top and just split push all day. And I'm sure a lot of people have heard that. I'm sure, Chira, you've probably
the hypercarry strat.
Yep.
Yeah, just you can kind of take the just game on your own shoulders and just kind of be like, fuck everyone else, this is what I'm gonna do.
And there's other champions you can do this with. Let's go back to one of my tried and true favorites. If you're playing Udyr and the team fights stop going your way and bad things are happening, I love that champion because you can just say, screw it, guys. I'm just going to split push till we either win or lose.
And the thing you have to remember about situations like that is you have to understand split pushing in order to be successful with Udyr or Tryndamere or Yi. So if you haven't played those champions and you go to try to split push after this episode, you're probably going to die a lot because you're not going to know when to push and when not to push and things like that. So I think the key is to find out where you're really good at the game. Like everyone has certain things they play. If you're silver, you have certain things you do at bronze level, you have certain things you do at gold level, and then there's a whole bunch of things you do at silver level. So if split pushing is one of those things you do at a gold level, then you're going to take a champion that abuses that, and you're going to take that champion and you're going to abuse your knowledge of it and your enemy's lack of knowledge of it. And another example that Adam was talking about the other day was taking like a Pantheon mid who has a really strong laning phase. And if you have good map awareness, then you can just like man drop on people all over the map and just put people on tilt. And the same thing with TF. Like if you have that good map awareness, is that something you excel on, then take somebody with that global presence and abuse the hell out of them.
I love taking Pantheon mid. I've been playing. Every once in a while I go play a game on my Smurf, kind of like honestly, it's a make me feel good match because I had a bad week. So I was like, I'm gonna go play one game on my Smurf. Take Pantheon mid, and it's understanding power spikes. Remember how we talked about that earlier in this year? We understood you need to learn your power spikes. Pantheon's got a phenomenal power spike at level 2, especially if you can hit it before the enemy. Something to understand about power spikes, to throw it out there, is if you're level 2 and then level 1, you have more attack damage, you have more attack speed, you have more armor, more whatever you scale off of than the enemy. So you can take advantage of that. Drop, force them to go back with your Ignite, and then you're able to get some free farm and go back and get some items and come back on them and use your advantage continually. But if you never get a kill, let's say it's Pantheon, but you're able to push the wave out because you exert that pressure in lane where they don't want to fight, man dropping all over the map and exerting your presence and taking towers and dragons and just forcing them to deal with you as Pantheon is pretty much the same thing as split pushing, except for now you have a global presence, essentially. Nocturne does a really good job of that. I'm not telling you to play top turn or whatever, but mid lane, you have that global presence or that semi-global presence. TF, anybody where you learn to exert your pressure so well that they're scared to push up against you, allows you to snowball the game in your favor.
Another example of exploiting a lack of game knowledge on the enemy team and maybe what you're good at is Eve. Like if you can exploit the fact that 1, they're not going to know how to ward against her. 2, you're going to make them buy a ton of pinks. You're just going to clear anyway. If you can just gank like 90 times in the first, just keep ganking them over and over, people are going to get pissed off. You're going to win your whole game for your team. And you'll have that advantage where you can just snowball your team through your presence. Or I'm trying to think of somebody else. But any situation where you know that you excel at one particular thing and you know there's a lack of game knowledge, whether it be a lack of knowing how to ward, a lack of knowing how to play against split pushers, things like that, you have to find the champion that best uses that ability or uses that mechanic and abuse the hell out of it.
If you already play support, so you guys don't yell at me about this, if you are already a support player and you've been playing support all season, I would say in these last 3 weeks, if you're having a problem with moving up, switch to something like Blitzcrank and try to pay attention to people that are in those, and the silver or bronze elos, because the likelihood of them being out of position in lane and you having bush control is greater than you missing a hook. Like, you can miss a hook but still turn that gank around just by the sheer fact that you're going to zone people with the presence of you being in that bush. Does that make sense, the way I explained it?
And if they don't play around that,
really
then you punish
good.
them.
Yes.
Blitzcrank's really good. Playing an AP support is really good because you can build AP, you become a second carry, and you can kind of take that into your own. And nobody knows how to play against a strong lane. Like, people just walk into your range all the time, no matter what you're playing, who you're playing.
You could be like
so that's
me
a really strong option
have
too.
to ward the bush in the lane when you're pushing
right,
the
that
turret.
you know somebody's standing in.
And you still do it. Like, you're like, I'll be fine. They're not there. And next thing I know, I'm pulled into the bush.
Then you're dead.
And I'm dead. And I yell, how did that hit me? When it's obvious it hit me. No.
Ant's a really good one for that. Blitzcrank, if you get really good pulls, if you're good with pulls, if you're not, then don't play him. Sona, I'll still stand by, I think is really good in lower elos. Things like that.
Annie.
Advantage Annie. Annie is still, look, she's not great in upper levels anymore. She's too commonly played against. People know how to work around her, and she doesn't have the damage she used to. I can't say that any of that will be true in bronze. Like,
Right.
you could just crush people with bronze. You just build her AP, still buy wards, still, make sure that you're paying attention to what you're supposed to do, but build AP and just crush people. If you are good at initiating, that's another thing. People don't know how to disengage, and people don't know how to counter engage. So if you're really good at engaging, if that's something that you're good at, then pick a Mumu, pick Annie, pick Malphite, pick like those people that are gonna make it possible for you to get a large amount of CC on people, and tell your team, okay, now it's time to fight.
A key I wanted to bring up in all of these strats is you have to get ahead during lane.
Yeah.
Like for the split pushing, you have to win your lane, because otherwise your lane opponent is just going to meet you wherever you go to split push, and they're going to shut you down.
Yep.
Same goes with the map wide pressure. Like if you're Pantheon, you're playing mid lane and you're losing the lane, and then you just leave to try and gank somewhere else. Well, then your mid laner is going to push through your lane, going to push through your tower. So I think a lot of these strats really come down to you have to pick a champion that you're comfortable with first of all, because that's going to help you win the lane, and then you actually have to have strong lane presence.
Sorry, I was reading this. I hate the argument that anyone ever says that, oh, some such player plays this in high elo. Any champion can be played in high elo. There are Poppy masters in high elo, for God's sakes, and Poppy is generally regarded as a bad champion. It doesn't mean it can't be played. It just means it's harder to play it than it is some other characters, because they don't have the innate overpoweredness of the other champions that have a higher win rate. Annie was so fucking phenomenal because she could throw a baseball from 500 yards and make it through the field goal post. I know they're two different goddamn games, but you know what I'm saying. Like,
you just mixed sports.
I did, and 500 yards. The football field's not even 500 yards, but you know what I'm saying. Like back in her heyday, she could harass people like crazy. She had fuck tons of damage, and she had so much more going for her kit than she does now. It's just. It doesn't make the champion bad. We're trying to give you anything we feel that is like that you can abuse at this point and take that into the next tier that you're trying to get into.
Right. And I mean it brings up a good point, because Annie's not terrible, but Annie-Bot is Annie-Bot because he has thousands of games on her, and he can abuse every single situation and knows his champion so well that he can just destroy anybody and abuse people's lack of knowledge and understanding of Annie. But it's the same thing. If you go to OPGG and look at the champions that you have played and look at your win rates. And if you have a champion that you have like 700 games on and you have a 65% win rate or 60% win rate, then just play that champion until the end of the season.
Right.
Like, there's no reason to play anything else. So it doesn't matter if someone else is OP right now, because the amount of time that it'll take you to learn why that champion's OP, you could just be playing whatever it is. If you have over 55% win rate on something, you're really strong at it, and you will move up as long as you don't like decline in skill level or hit a wall.
On the opposite piece of that, if you feel you are really good at a champion and you go look at your OPGG stats and you find that you're under 50%, it may be time to reconsider playing that champion or to find another source of information about that champion so you can get better at it.
But again, how many across how many games is this?
Well, assume
Lots.
50 or more.
Yeah, lots. Not like 20.
Right.
Like, oh man, I'm 15-5. This is the greatest champion ever. After 20 games. No,
Right.
you're just
Right.
it's too small a sample size.
Yeah.
I mentioned that because I actually had a champion like that. I think it was last season. I'm like, man, I should play this champion more. So the reason that my record was so good, it was Graves. The reason my record was so good with Graves is because I knew what match to pick him into, but I just kind of started shoehorning him into every game after that and just started losing games.
Well, you could look at my Maokai win rate. He's 91% with 11 games played. I am obviously the best Maokai player ever played.
Clearly.
I mean, I'm pretty
Challenger
good.
level.
Hey, I have 13 games played in ranked as Rumble, and I'm 62%. I have 49 as Soraka and 59%, so at least I got something going for me.
But so Adam's a good example. I'm a good example. I will watch Adam. I'll look at his league, and he's playing like Braum. or some other shit that he's
Right.
never played before, and he has a 59% win rate as Soraka. I have like 400. It's because
Adam's
what?
a meta whore.
Right.
Adam
true.
is a
He
meta.
is.
It's true. I will never ever say I'm not. Absolutely.
I have like 400 games as Sona and like a 58 or 59% win rate. And all of a sudden I'll be like, I think I'm going to play somebody else. And then I'll end up back in Plat 2 again.
Why you do that?
And then I have Punch making fun of me. And then it's like, okay, I'm just going to play Sona for a while. And then I'll end up back in Plat 1. And then I'm stupid enough to play something else. Like,
No, for
when
real,
this-
guys. I'm shelving Sona.
You just
Right.
need to
No, you're
get a
not.
poster of Sona up on your walls with like googly eyes that says, "Why aren't you playing me?" That's all you
Right.
need, and that'll
she'll be sad and crying.
Yeah, you
Googly
just-
eyes, not even sad.
Yeah, just like the goofy big, child art Google eyes and like a print out a tear, like a tear of the goddess, and put that next to her eye, and it just says, "Why aren't you playing me?" And use
Doesn't that
that.
just make her really hard? Like she killed the tear of the goddess? Or she killed somebody? Isn't that what you do? Don't you like? I don't know. I'm not. Listen, I'm the whitest white kid ever. I'll admit to that. But like when you kill somebody, you
prison
get a
tattoo?
teardrop.
Is
Yeah.
that? Oh,
Yeah,
you
I'm
know
doing
what?
a prison tattoo.
Oh, right.
Shtick.
I know you're
God,
That
Yeah,
was
that's
a
the
really
thing.
bad joke. I'm
it wasn't
sorry.
a joke. It was just a thought.
A shitty observation.
I thought you were talking about the stacking your tier meme.
That's what I was talking about, a stacking tier.
Yeah.
But Adam
Guys,
just
I'm gonna go play
murders
Rengar.
that.
I'm gonna go play
Yeah.
Rengar tonight. I'm just letting you guys know.
Please,
yeah,
please don't.
I'm ready to just not have
Watch
fun.
that video.
Yeah.
that video had a
great
long
video.
build up, and it was
If-
so worth it.
If you guys have not seen the Adam Rengophobia Cogswell
It's so good.
YouTube video that is now on the T4 subreddit, please stop listening to the podcast, which is only going to be going for a few more minutes anyway. Who cares what we have to say? Go and watch that video because it is great. It is the best thing that's ever been made.
Yes, that video.
really good.
That video is so good because it's true. I love how I didn't even know. Did I throw the cat that night or
Yes.
you pulled it? Did
No.
I?
Yes, you tossed. I mean, it couldn't have been better. It just. I'm not going to say
I'm
anything else.
sticking
Just go
it.
watch
I'm
it.
sticking it. It's stuck to the top of the page right now because that's how good it is. More people need to see this. I should have done this.
Thalden's already linked it in Twitch.
That game was
great.
just so bad.
This is the best thing I've ever seen.
You know what's funny is I watched that. I watched myself play. I'm like, you know what? I make some pretty good moves. It's just too bad they were really bad.
See, you say that, and it's like a missed bola, and then you die. It's like, okay.
No, I'm like, all right. Well, my moves are crisp. It's just too bad they're the wrong moves.
Yep.
And I want to
Okay.
say that Yasuo did get healed. Chira, I was
I feel
screaming
like-
about that, and I was like, he got healed. You're like, oh, he didn't get healed. He just hit you with the ult. Well, he did both.
I feel like that is literally what happens to every player once a montage hits Reddit. Is like you see the beginning and this like kick-ass Rengar, like, and it goes, "Oh, I want to play Rengar now. I'd be so good." And
Yeah,
then you
right.
see what actually happens
That's-
later in
that's-
the video.
Yeah,
when
that's probably
Adam's
the
playing
most
it.
You hit the nail
accurate
on the
league
head.
montage that's ever happened.
You know what? I never thought about it that way, but that is like nail on the head exactly how it is. I watched the montage. I was like, I want to play Rengar. And then this is how Rengar gets played. Oh, man. I want to go play Kill Lane. Who wants to play Leona with me tonight?
Nah, man, I still gotta try to get Diamond.
All right. Good luck to you. Does anyone else want to play Leona
Yeah,
with me?
I need.
Is it gonna be me?
I don't know. We need a
You're playing
Kindred.
Kindred.
We need a
All right.
Kindred.
All right.
Punch, can you play Leona?
Oh, this is a terrible idea.
Yes.
I can
Mark?
play Leona, remember? But I can play anybody.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah,
the-
You know.
Yep.
Look at my Brom stats. I can
another
play anybody.
montage incoming.
Yeah, no, it'd be bad. It would be. I can't hit an ultimate for the.
It's a circle shot, right? Is that the?
Yeah.
My name's Jed. I'm so funny. I'll start. I could be sexist right now, but I won't. I'm sorry.
Two big
Wow,
circles in the
that's
new
no.
champ.
I just really wanted to give her shit. Yeah. Wow. Does J4 count because his E is a circle?
No.
What are you talking about?
No.
It's a
Get
circle.
I
Oh,
wasn't
it's a
the
little
one who
circle.
started that either. That's just general knowledge within the
Yeah.
community.
Yep.
I really want to make a boss. I'm so bad at this because there's so many jokes that I want to make, but I can't formulate them fast enough because their accent came out there, and I was actually thinking about the ka keys this morning when I was walking out to the ka. And,
Going
Khakis.
Ah. Get the khakis.
Khakis? What?
Said khakis.
Yeah, but I know Jen was happy about last night. I will say that. With the Colts.
Always.
The snap.
5-0.
We're 6-0.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell was that.
We're 6-0, by the way.
That was the worst play of all time.
The snap? No.
I watched it like 3 times today. I'm trying to figure out. I'm like, what? Why? Like, well, I don't even like your team, but why? Why would you do that?
It was. I read about it, and everybody else read about it, but I guess they were trying to make them go off sides with the snap, and he wasn't actually snapped the ball. It's funny. No, this obviously isn't a sports podcast, but I want to talk about it because I was in Michigan at the time. Did you guys see the Michigan State highlight?
Yes.
No,
it was.
I didn't.
It was
beautiful.
As an Ohio State alum, that was magic.
Jen, here's what happened.
Hilarious.
Michigan. It is 4th and whatever. There is 10 seconds left in the game. And
5 seconds.
5 seconds left in the game. So they're going to punt it, right? That's all they had to do was punt it. And as long as they stop the guy from running back, they win the game. They hike the ball. The kicker misses the catch. It drops on the ground. He tries to pick it up again and kick it. Rather than falling on it, he tries to kick it. Michigan State recovers it. Touchdown, Michigan State. Game ended right there.
I'll have to watch it. That sounds amazing.
5 seconds left in the game.
Amazing.
5 seconds left in the game. But yeah, that was a running joke today at the office. People would walk by the Michigan fans and like pretend to drop something and then try to pick it back up. So yes, go watch the fumble. It is now deemed the fumble. There is the fumble and the snap all in one weekend.
The fumble heard round the world.
Yeah, I've heard that the punter is getting death threats. But the problem with that is, you know what? If you guys want to give me death threats, that's fine. Or anybody, but just think about it this way: that dude already feels fucking terrible that he lost it.
Yep.
Let's not do anything else because
he's beating himself up more than any of your words ever would.
Yeah, there are stories of like people, like old sports stars who had to move because they screwed up real bad and
it's insane.
Like just got ridiculed and like. I don't know.
We're just having a regular conversation. All right, that's it. That's episode. You know when people are gonna write in and be like, "Thanks for talking about sports."
Good thing we can
Sports
always
ball.
Edit it out, right?
No, we won't edit it. It's
We're
just
not
fun to
going
talk
to,
about.
but yeah.
We had 15 minutes of blunders last podcast. Guys, don't forget to go check us out. The Columbus World Party is happening. That information is all on TrinityForceNetwork.com or the subreddit T-Force Network. That's episode number 303 of the Trinity Force podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed our Kindred discussion. We will be back on Wednesday with a Just Okay podcast. See ya.
Take it easy.
Hey.